All right, so in this part of the course, I want you to get an idea of how things work typically in different companies. And this is called the Software Development Lifecycle, SDLC. And it's typically the process that happens within a real life tech company or software company. Obviously, different companies develop their software and applications in different ways. And most importantly, they involve designers at different levels. Maybe designers are very important in this company. In other companies, unfortunately, design may not be the one force that's driving a software solution, and it ends up being a technically derived software solution. So when you have developers and engineers being the main people who make decisions on what is going to be the end solution, and they don't really normally, with all due respect, they don't really have a sense of user empathy or human-centered design in general. They're very technically driven. And so it ends up putting the design practice in a company being very much secondary. So as a UX designer, you will have to be put in situations, either in teams or in a whole setting of an organization, that may or may not understand what is really the role of a design practice in a software development process. So you will have to be that person that will be educating other people on your team to actually consider the importance of design. So I have gone through these steps in the previous video and lesson, but now I want you to consider thinking a little bit broadly. So usually we have a discovery phase. This is where you discover the scope of the projects. There are some templates such as the scoping document that is really important for you as a designer in any project that you take part in. You have the research part, you have the synthesis part of that data that you gather. And then as you discover, there are different people who discover in different ways. You have, as I mentioned, the PMs and the engineers would be discovering differently than a designer. Designer would be working on end user needs and understanding who they're serving. The technical people may be looking at the current environments that are being run in the backend of that application, or the servers, or any other technical aspect. And then you have the business people who think about the business outcomes, the business requirements that they're trying to achieve. You might even have marketing people or sales people involved in here to tell you what we're trying to achieve out of this application. Maybe we want more customers. Maybe we want more signups. Maybe we want more data from the people who come to our websites or software. So it really depends on what you're trying to achieve as a company or team. Then obviously comes the design. And when I say design, it's not just the UX design side. There is the business design. There is the process design. There are many design aspects that are happening. And this is one thing that a lot of people in the tech world don't understand. And so it's really important to keep that in mind, that you have many, many different types of designs happening here. Um, we obviously, in the design phase, as UX designers, you work on, doing some low fidelity designs. I mentioned that earlier. If you didn't watch the previous lesson, please do watch it. Um, then we go over, iteration, validating our concepts, and then thinking about making them into a more higher fidelity design. On the business design side, you think about processes. How is this application or software going to change the process in our company or in our client's world? It really depends whether your company is a business to business company. So if you sell software to other companies, let's say you sell software to restaurants or you sell software to insurers. Um, or if it's a business to customer company, so you sell software to end consumers. So you use software like, for example, DoorDash. It's an application that we consume and use. So the design phase is really like where we think about all of the architecture from a technical standpoint. It's architecture from a business standpoint. It's processes, metrics, and things like that. From a design standpoint, it's really the experience flow. How are our end users going to go through this experience? And even if you are a business to business company, you're working for them, you end up thinking about the end user, because that's what you are doing. You're serving who is going to use this app at the end of the day. So let's say you are helping restaurants have more clients. That's the business side of things. But you, as a designer, think about that person who wants to order the food. How will they experience that? How will they be frustrated? How can we minimize their frustration and get them to do that thing they wanted to do fast? And as a business person, you might be thinking about, how can we get them to buy more? How can we get them to give us more 5-star reviews? From a technical standpoint, you're going to think about, okay, how can we make this happen from a coding perspective? Are we going to use an existing server? Are we going to use a UI framework? What coding language are we using? Obviously, the development phase is where developers come in. They also work with designers and work with all of the designs that happened, and they're broken down in what we call user stories. So each design has many actions that a user would be doing. So those actions will be broken down into user stories so that multiple developers work on each, pick a user story and work on it. And usually they will have more screens to develop than the design that is given to them. So they have to work with design to think, UX designers in general, UX consultants, to think about how can they bring to life this solution and this application while always following what the design, UX design aspect has been proposing and designing. This is where the business people start making sure that everything is implemented, that they're talking with the executive sponsors, the stakeholders, to keep them posted about what is happening. They keep developers in check, make sure that all of the requirements that were in the discovery phase are all actually thought about, and they're all considered in the development phase, that we're not missing anything. They make sure to bring people to check, for example, the quality assurance, to check that everything is done in the right way, that the quality is perfect, that the application is working as needed. They may be involved in testing, so the business people can be testing what is being developed. UX designers are always involved here with developers, back and forth, checking the design, designing parts, designing even components that are maybe complex. Then obviously we test this. This is where we do some testing on the technical side, what is called a software testing, and we also do user testing. So we test what are our end users going to experience. And then obviously we have deploy. So deploy is where you ship that solution to the world, but you don't want to stop here. You want to measure engagements, measure the satisfaction of people, so you can have back-end data analytics linked to your application or software, and you can iterate again and improve as you go. And then after what happens, you come back to discover again. And that's it. You keep on doing it and improving. And it's, you see, it's a cycle. It has iteration. There is an iterative process. It's not linear. There's a lot of back and forth of research, of trial, of testing. So this is very important for you to keep in mind as a process. And you will really, really need it in everything that you do and be involved in. So you can dive deeper into each of these phases, but for you, it's just important to know in general what is happening, and we'll dive deeper into really what designers do in each phase.